Welcome to Intuitive Connections, where spirituality and psychology meet to help you be your best and brightest self. I'm your host, Victoria Shaw, and in each episode, I'll help you to awaken your own inner wisdom, step into your power, and live a more divinely inspired life. You're here to let your inner light shine. Are you ready? Let's do this. So hello and welcome to Intuitive Connection. I am your host, intuitive counselor, Victoria Shaw. And today I want to approach a topic that has become quite front and center in my life and in my heart. And that's connecting with our loved ones who have crossed over. And this is something that I have, as a medium, as an intuitive counselor, have been supporting my clients with for years. And it's always been, my understanding that we all have this connection. So someone who is trained as an evidential medium, which, by the way, I am not, is someone who has worked really hard and probably to some extent found this natural, but has worked very hard to create and sort of clear the channel between themselves and the spirit world, and particularly be able to connect with people's loved ones and provide detailed evidence, right, that there's life after death. And that is not something that I'm in the business of doing, not because I don't really truly honor that mission and purpose, but because I just prefer to hang out with my spirit guides, which I don't necessarily believe are my deceased loved ones. And also, I am so in the habit of preaching to the choir, meaning most of the people that find their way to my podcast, find their way to my office, find their way to my virtual office and all of the above, they already believe, that the soul is eternal. They don't need me to prove that to them. They may want to, have some evidence that I am in fact connecting with their loved ones or connecting with their spirit guides. And I think when working with any medium or intuitive or pretty much anyone in the world who is, purporting to offer you support and guidance, like a certain amount of healthy skepticism is really called for. But I'm just not dealing with the real skeptics that, are just looking for proof that life after death, that our soul persists after the body is gone. Most of my clients already believe that. So that makes my job just that much easier. But I have been the conduit or channel to connect many of my clients with their deceased loved ones over the years, and it's something that I've done for many people. And as you know, in March of this year, I lost my father and was super surprised because from the moment that he passed, it was a shock. I found out very quickly, but from the moment that I knew that he passed, I had a deep, strong, and clear connection with him. And that was really a beautiful thing. Now, his passing still, tears were still shed for sure, because when someone crosses over, we miss them in human form. But having that deeper connection with my dad, probably than I did when he was in a body, was really, truly miraculous for me and deeply healing and deeply joyful. And I'm grateful for it every single day. Now, the guides are reminding me, I don't necessarily count my dad as my spirit guide the way I count my guides who have trained for that mission and purpose and don't have that sort of encumbered relationship with me, as a human being in this human body, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, can sometimes complicate things. It can complicate that connection. And of course, it's really important because that's what we're here to do. But it means that our loved ones are not always the best people to be our primary guides, right? But they are here supporting us. And again, I felt and experienced that support from my dad in really magical and mystical ways. So I'm so grateful for that. But more recently, a few weeks ago, actually, I lost my other parent. I lost my mother. And my relationship with my mother was considerably more complicated than my relationship with my father. And they were both complicated relationships, by the way. Yours truly did not win the parent lottery. Or, maybe I did. Maybe I did, because from the human lens, right, there is pain and grief when we don't get the caring and support that our soul deserves and desires. But I think from the soul lens, sometimes we attract in and choose these very complicated relationships, especially early on, because we know the potential that we have throughout life to benefit from them. And I do really believe that I've benefited from both of these relationships and that I continue to learn and grow and would not be the person I am today had I been born to different parents. So I'm going to thank them both for their service, but also acknowledge that, the human part of me did not love certain parts of my childhood for sure. Giving myself a hug.
So needed. But my relationship with my mom was much more complicated because she was a much more complicated soul. And I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but I'm getting the thumbs up. She was a very, very confused and very, very stuck individual. And unfortunately, that made it difficult for her to both express but also receive love. And so that makes for a difficult mother-child bond. And what I've found since her passing, because we had that very complicated relationship, and because though I know I've done so much healing on my side, and that is a conversation for another day, because we often think we need to do the healing with the person that caused the wounds or co-created those wounds is a better way to say it. And sometimes we have that experience. And I had that experience with my dad towards the end of his life, in the last year of his life. He really was able to process and share some regrets that he had and apologize for some things that were difficult for me. And so we really did have some really, beautiful conversations that brought, I think, both of us a lot of clarity and a lot of peace before he crossed over. But we don't always get that. And my friends, we don't always need that because healing is always an internal job, just like pretty much everything else in this world. And so for me, I've processed a lot of the grief of not having the mother that I wanted to begin with, and also probably the grief of losing my mother in physical form, in my very own skin, internally on my very own side, because she was not necessarily accessible or available to, doing her side of that particular dance. It wasn't available, accessible, or she was not open to that. And that is okay. And again, giving myself another hug because it's still fresh and raw and I love myself so much. And I know my mom loved me too. But one of the things that I recognized upon her crossing is, part of me was ready, willing and able to be okay, my mom she's free from her body and she's all there for me and I can connect with her now in a way that I never could before. And this is going to be so fun. And so far, my beautiful friends, that expectation has not been met. It's not been met. And I know that a lot of the reason for that, there's a couple of things in the guides want to share, and I'm sure this is 411 for me as well as you, as it always is when I sit down in front of this beautiful microphone. But one of the reasons I know is that I'm not clear and totally healed in that relationship, right? And what the guides have shown me is I don't have a clear, loving connection with her. I loved her. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's possible to love your parent. And I also think, as crazy as the way that she was able to express it to me, I do know she loved me. And I do think she did the best she could do of expressing that to me, even though it came through in a very distorted and twisted kind of way, a significant part of the time. But getting back to the thread, and so much love there, sending my spirit mama so much love. But anyhow, I think one of the reasons why that connection has been harder is I'm still processing my own loss, my own grief, and I'm still getting acclimated to making peace with what was so that I can connect to who she really is truly and completely now. But there's another thing that my guides want me to know about this relationship, and that is that we were not particularly close or loving souls. Now, that's a weird thing, right? Because this person was my mom. But what you have to understand is from a soul perspective, we often, but in this case, we don't always choose the most loving and compatible souls for those intimate relationships. And sometimes, we will take the thorn in the side soul early on because it helps us clear and heal so much energy. And the guides say that's what I did with this relationship. So that's another reason too why it's easy for us personally to connect with some souls as they pass more than others, because, if there's a strong soul connection there to begin with, that makes that connection much easier. But they say the main thing that's blocking me is just my own unresolved issues on this side with respect to my mom. And look, I have been hearing my mom. Don't get me wrong. I've been hearing her a lot. And I've noticed, for example, that I can connect with her very much through her sense of humor, because she had this wacky, packy, crazy sense of humor that I really I really enjoyed, just craziness. And that is the way that she's most able to connect with me, right? Because that is a place where I am comfortable receiving. And so the first thing I want people to know in connecting with their loved ones, first of all, there is no right or wrong way to do it. There's no right or wrong timeline for it to happen. And there's nothing wrong with you if you're not easily making that connection right now. I have a client that lost their partner, their life partner, in a pretty difficult way. And I had a really good relationship with this partner. She was also a client as well. So it was very easy for me to connect with her the moment that she crossed over. But her spouse, not so much. It was really challenging for him because he lost her in a very difficult way. And he still had a lot of unresolved feelings about that whole relationship, and particularly the nature of that person, his partner's passing. And so I know that he was very appreciative of me to be able to make that connection for him. At the same time, he was frustrated that he couldn't connect himself, right? And I see now, and I'm sending that person so much love. I love both of those beings so much and have been so grateful to have them in my life as clients and spirit friends for sure. But I understand more, and I saw this before, but now I understand it more personally, right? More deeply. That, sometimes when we have these complications, it makes it a little bit hard for us to connect. When that happens, it's important to make peace with yourself, make peace with the situation, and know, again, that even if we can't connect with them directly, our loved ones are always with us. They're always supporting us. And it's also important that we honor the nature of the human relationship and the human connection, and that we honor where we're at personally, because that's the most important thing. And the guides say, for example, if I've always had a longing to have this clean, clear, loving relationship with my mother, and that longing is so strong and it still feels unfulfilled, it's going to make it difficult for me to just hop right in there and have that with my spirit mama. And that's okay. That's okay. And then they also say it has something to do with, the connection between the souls in general too, right? Some souls just play more nicely together and others not so much. And we have to honor that equation as well. But the important thing that, the reason I sat down at this microphone for me and for you is to understand that there's no right or wrong way to do this, and that our loved ones are always communicating with us, and they always love us. They always love us, and we always love them. On the deepest sense, there is nothing else, and there is no other connection that we could possibly have, no matter how much we all showed up together in this human form. If you, for example, had a run-in with a serial killer, or that's a big one, right? Understand that even that soul came to you in your life out of love. Now, I am not expecting anyone to understand that, and I hope that scenario has not touched anybody listening to this show. I'm so sure it hasn't, but I'm sending you all a lot of love if that was a little bit triggering. But my point is that every interaction we have on this planet, at the deepest sense, comes from love. It's just that, sometimes the clouds are so dense and so thick and the sky is so stormy and, there's forest fires and tsunamis and hurricanes that make it very, very difficult in those moments to see the bright shining sun that is responsible, for everything. It's lighting everything. It's always there. We just don't see it, right? And that is the nature of your soul, source, God, and unconditional love, which is what we are all made of and what this whole universe runs on. So I want you to take a moment, please, to take that in. I also want to remind you, too, that our own blocks, understandings of how that connection with our loved ones is supposed to be, can also block that connection. And I say this again and again and again in all forms of intuition. If you have a strong idea of what it's supposed to look like, right, that might get in your way. It might get in your way, especially if you believe, that's the only way it can come to you. So, for example, I'll share a little story and I'll post this on the socials as well. On the day of my mom's burial, first of all, I woke up in the morning with a very particular song going through my head. God bless her. Again, her sense of humor. I'm pretty sure that I woke up in the morning hearing my mother sing to me, "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead." Like over and over and over again, laughing hysterically and dressed in a funny costume that had significance to me of something else funny that she did. And again, that's what I'm saying. It's very easy for me to receive her through that channel of her dark sense of humor, because that was just very open and accessible to me. So Mom, I love you. And I see you right now laughing that I'm sharing this on the air, but I'm pretty sure that was her way of saying good morning. And her burial was beautiful. And I know that she's at peace. But later, as I was leaving the place where she was laid to rest, I came across a 4-leaf clover. And four-leaf clovers have been a sign of mine for years and years and years and years. And some of you may know the story that our house in Connecticut used to grow four-leaf clovers, like hundreds of them every year. And we would laminate them on little business cards. And I still have hundreds of them that I will hand to people when I feel so called to pass that love and luck and abundance and joy along. So finding one, at her burial site was pretty significant. And again, I know I was directed by my highest guidance. And that too includes my dearly deceased mom. And so, sometimes we hear a voice in our head. Sometimes we see a bird or an animal. Sometimes we get a message from someone else, or sometimes we find a four-leaf clover. Whatever your sign is, whatever is accessible to you to receive, that is how your loved ones will find you and communicate with you. So really, it's so helpful when we are open to all of the different ways that they can connect and support us. And again, the guides always tell me, and I'm going to pass this along to you, if you think it's a sign, if you think it's a message from the other side and it makes you feel good, it most definitely is. It most definitely is. Take it at face value, love it, own it, honor it, and know that they are always supporting you. Even if you can't hear them, in your mind's ear, or see them in your mind's eye, or feel their hug or touch. And all of these things have been accessible to me with people that have passed for me from time to time. But even if you're not having those experiences, know that there are so many different ways that they can support us. And then it's important when tapping into our intuition and tapping into our mediumship abilities and tapping into our sixth sensory knowing. All of those things are variations on the same theme, communicating with our spirit guides. It's always important to start where it's already flowing for you. Because when we try to push that river, right, when we try to push the river, we're going against the flow. And intuition, like everything else good in life, comes from that flow, from being aligned with that great flow of life and love and spirit and joy and higher guidance. So we want to go with how it's already flowing for us. Because when we go from there, that's where all the magic happens. So the last little bit that I want to talk about is some of the reasons why we want to connect with our loved ones after they pass, and how that can either facilitate or block that connection. Again, if you are looking for validation, right, as someone I know who's sitting on the other side, on this particular side, me, I'm talking about myself, may want to do, sometimes that can block it, right? Because if we're looking for validation for someone and we don't believe that it is forthcoming, right, then we're not going to get it from them, even on the other side. Or at least it may be a little more complicated. Now, I've had so many signs and so many people that have supported me throughout this journey, reminding me, right, that my own point of view in this situation was really valuable, but also that I don't need to hang on to my own point of view, right? I just have to honor the places where I'm hurting, love myself. And it doesn't really matter what the other person or now soul spirit thinks, because I know on the highest sense they're on my side. They can't not be, right? And when we return to soul form, we cannot not love. Like, it's impossible not to love every soul that we've come in contact with. So your deceased loved ones love the pants off of you no matter what. They can't not. And they love you in a more clear way than they could when they were constricted by their human eyeballs, by their human skin, when they were seeing through the keyhole or their own distorted lenses of how the human world had impacted and confused and abused them. Okay, so that's the first thing to know. But sometimes when we are looking through our own broken human, glasses, it's going to be hard to see them in that light because we are still healing. And that is very important, and that is okay. The other thing that the guides want me to tell you, and maybe it's coming through for me as well, is that we can't look for our loved ones to do the work for us. We can't look for the loved ones to heal us. Now, the good news is they're processing on their side as well. So as we come to a greater understanding, as we come to peace with their lives and their passing, that is of value to them as well as to us. And they will be working on their side as well to heal that stuff, to work through that stuff, to come to peace with that stuff and their part in our own suffering. That is part of their job. That is part of their mission, right? And we can't rush that process on either side of the veil, though, it is more effortless for them sometimes than it is for us. But the guides say not always. Oh, I love that. But regardless, it's not about them giving us peace, right? It's about us finding peace within ourselves. And if we are still looking for that person on the other side to give us, right, what they didn't give us in that human body because we are feeling that unresolved ouch or angst or resentment or anger or pain or sadness or grief or what have you, right, that will block the connection. Now, that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong, my friend. You are processing exactly as you should. And there is no reason to rush. And if that sounds like you, it's all okay. Take, whatever comes to you and run with that. Take whatever signs come to you and run with that. And remember, even if you are a medium like I am and you're used to connecting quite easily, it can be very different, right? When it is a spirit that is close to home, because the more encumbrances we have and the more, things that we are working on, the more difficult it can be to make that connection. And the guides are telling me, thank you guides so much, that I am making that connection and that I have made that connection. And so are you, my friends. If this is something that you are experiencing or wanting to flow more with, you are making that connection as well. It's just hard to see it sometimes because that human lens may be a little bit foggy with respect to this particular issue or experience. Does that make sense? So you are making the connection. We all are, but sometimes it's just hard for us to see it through the human lens and to really experience it and perceive it through our humanness when that lens gets foggy with our own unprocessed grief and other stuff. Okay? But the guides want me to finish by reminding you and reminding me too that our loved ones always support us and that we always do have that conduit to communicate with them. And remember, once our loved ones are passed, right, they no longer have that human ego, which means that you can share with them whatever the heck you want to share. If you're angry, if you're mad, if you're disappointed, if you're frustrated, you cannot hurt them anymore. And more importantly, they cannot hurt you. Now, the internalized version of them, that's another story, and that's a conversation for therapy or intuitive counseling or deeper work if that is still troubling you. But their spirit selves love the crap out of you. They have made peace with everything on some level and in the process of integrating all of the wonderfulness that they experienced in this body, even the things that didn't feel so wonderful to the two of you when you were dancing together in human form. They are at peace. They want you to be at peace. They love you, and nothing you can say, feel, or do can hurt them now. Okay? And so you can release all of the baggage that you've been carrying as you are ready to let it go and know that you cannot hurt them and they cannot hurt you anymore. And I think that in and of itself is so powerful to know. Know too, again, the guides say that they always love and support you and that they will always, if you ask, they will always answer. Now, you may not hear it, directly or clearly, or you very well may. And many of you guys are hearing your loved ones all the time and getting their messages all the time. And again, if you think it's happening and it feels good, go with it, man, because it is the truth. It is the truth. They're here all the time for us, but they can't walk just like your spirit guides, they can't walk the journey for you. They can't do the healing, or the growth for you. All they can do is love the pants off of you and honor you and appreciate you and thank you for your bravery and kindness for doing that human dance with them and sharing a little bit of your earthly experience with them when they were in human form. And I know that one came right through from my mom, so I'm going to take a minute to take that in. I love you all for tuning in and giving me the opportunity to do these little self-help segments, which I hope are helpful for you too. And again, just know that you are loved, that you are supported, both by your friends and relatives and colleagues in human form, but also from those on the other side. And that whenever you speak to them, they hear you, they love you, and more as you get out of your own way and just allow that communication to come back to you however it wants to come, however it wants to flow. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, trust in your own healing and grieving process, which is important to honor. You will know that they are always there supporting you, and more you will be able to feel that connection in a more deep, clear, and the guides say concise way, whatever that means. So I think that's all I got for you today. Definitely we'll be having some conversations about this over in the Facebook group because I think that'll be really fun. And maybe depending on when this goes live, we can do some readings over there. Also remember, if you want to do a mediumship reading with me or get some grief support through your loss, or, no matter how recent or old that is a service that I offer as part of my intuitive counseling work. You can find out information about that on my website, victoriashawintuitive.com. In fact, you can find out information about all the fun stuff that I offer over there. And I would love to play with you there anytime, anyway. But very most importantly, I just want to thank you guys all for tuning in, for giving me your energy and attention for these 27 plus minutes. It is always a pleasure to do what I do, and I hope these episodes touch you as deeply as they touch me. So I love you all. Enjoy the rest of your day, and namaste.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you found joy, strength, inspiration, and clarity from today's episode. If you'd like to learn more and connect with an amazing group of like-minded souls, please join us over on Facebook in the Intuitive Connection Community Facebook group, where we explore these topics in deeper detail, have additional live teachings, and host Facebook Lives with our amazing guests. I hope to see you there. And of course, if you want to learn more about me or the work that I do, please check out my webpage, victoriashawintuitive.com. Thank you so much again, and namaste.